Good morning, everybody. Growing up in my home country of Austria, I've been surrounded by a very different governmental system than we have in the United States. As you guys know, the United States government is made up of three branches: the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch, which they're all in power of mostly two parties, the Republicans or the Democrats. In contrast, Austria is made of a parliament and an executive branch and the judicial branch, which it might seem similar, but it's actually really, really different in who rules and how the system really works. For example, the parliament includes 6 different parties in Austria. Austria is also really small, only about half the size of Wisconsin, and only inhabits 9 million people. So in the late 1900s, the Austrian government and many other really small countries in Europe came together and realized that they needed help from a bigger union or a bigger thing. Austria needed to be protected from future wars and needed help through trade to build up its economy again. And after decades of misery, including World War One, and then the Global Depression, and then World War Two, the European Union was formed with the intent for, a more peaceful Europe and a powerful economy, similar to the one the United States has now. Ever since, not only Austria but many other countries in Europe have profited of the idea of this formed union. According to express.co.uk, Europe started to become more united through the European coal and steel community in 1952, where 6 of the biggest European countries came together, created a pact to open up steel and coal mines under the same conditions for all 6 of the countries involved. The feeling of unity that was established then was furthered when the Treaty of Rome in 1957 was signed by West Germany, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. This treaty actually created the European Economic Community, which created the so-called common market. And what the common market basically means is that all countries in the community had to get rid of all trade barriers for all the countries included, which then would lead to a better economy for all the countries involved. Britannica.com reports that 35 years later, in 1992, the Maastricht Treaty established the European Union as we know it now. They created many important laws, such as the EU citizenship for all member states and the foundation of the joint currency, which in 1999, the euro currency was born and then first used in January of 2002. By the end of 2000, many really small countries started joining the EU, and the so-called Euro area was created, which is made up now of almost 27 countries who have joined. Many more are trying to join right now, but the most noticeable would be Turkey because it's the biggest. And in the 50 years creating the Union, it has become a really, really complex system that is not understood by a lot of people even in Europe. So to have a better awareness of the Union, one has to really understand the 3 main institutions of the EU. The first one is the European Commission, which can be kind of compared to the executive branch of the United States. It's responsible to propose new laws, which will then be ratified or vetoed by the other 2 institutions. The Commission is also responsible to enforce laws in member states and represent the EU in international affairs of any kind. The President of the Commission is appointed by the European Council, which is one of the other institutions that I'm going to talk about later, and is then affirmed or not affirmed through the majority of the European Parliament, which is the 3rd institution that I'm going to talk about. The new president of the European Commission was actually just appointed last year, and her name is Ursula von der Leyen, and she was the prior Secretary of Defense or Minister of Defense for Germany. She's also the first ever female president of the European Commission, which I thought was really cool. The second institution is the Council of the European Union that I mentioned earlier. Andrew Cox from Quora.com says that it's the most powerful of all institutions because it appoints the president of the Commission, it creates a work plan for the EU, and it has the power to agree to treaty changes between European Union countries. According to Europa.eu, the Council is considered the voice of all of the EU member governments, and it also adopts EU laws and is responsible to coordinate EU policies in all the countries. The president of the council the president of the council changes from member country to member country semi-annually, and right now is in the hands of Croatia. And the last institution of the three big ones that I'm going to talk about is the European Parliament, which is relatively comparable to the Congress of the United States. Every member state votes their representatives into the parliament through nationwide elections, which actually just happened last year. And right now the parliament consists of 705 members, and the amount of representatives every country has really depends on the population of the country. So it's similar to the idea of the House of Representatives and the states. In conclusion, the European Union has been an experiment, I think, that has worked out exceptionally so far. If we look at the numbers, though, the euro is more powerful than the dollar right now. The EU's GDP is at $18.8 trillion and is growing every year with a few exceptions like right now. Overall, the goal of peace and a better European economy so far has been met, and the EU can proudly say that it has worked out for the good of all people included. Even though Great Britain left earlier this year as the first country ever, the EU, I think, is still really strong and currently involved in finding a solution to the coronavirus pandemic. Thank you guys for listening.